Splitgate 2 has been out for a little bit now, and just like every other live service free-to-play game, it has a cosmetic store, where players can spend money or occasionally earn currency to purchase different skins that are available within it. And today I'll be having a look at the Splitgate shop and the items that it offers while trying to determine whether or not the prices are worth it. We'll be looking at the prices of the currency, aka Splitcoin, the battle pass and any other premium bundles that are available, while also comparing it to other live service titles, primarily being Fortnite, as I believe that sort of sets the gold standard for live service games, and honestly is the game that caused a lot of these very similar storefronts and battle pass systems to start to pop up in other titles. And I'll also be comparing it to Halo Infinite, because one, I'm of course primarily a Halo channel, I don't think that's any secret, and two, Splitgate has of course copied a lot off of the Halo series, and though Splitgate 2 has definitely distanced itself a bit more than its predecessor, when you have a quote from MintBlitz in your trailer and you commission all of the big Halo content creators to make a video about your game, the intentions are pretty clear. So anyways, without wasting any more of your time, let's jump straight in. First of all, let's look at Splitcoin. Splitcoin is the primary premium currency that can be used to buy almost everything available within the store. That includes bundles and of course the battle pass. Splitgate does have another premium currency called Proelium, but we'll come back to that later. Now Splitcoin itself comes in 6 different tiers. You have the lowest, which is 500 Splitcoin for £4.19. Yes, I am looking at pounds and not dollars because, believe it or not, I am British, and the prices you will see on screen are pounds and not dollars. That being said, 500 Splitcoin is roughly $5, so as you can imagine, that means every other tier is going to be a relatively similar amount. So essentially look at the pound and then round it up to the nearest value, and that's probably your price in dollars. Anyways, you have 500 Splitcoin for £4.19, 1050 Splitcoin for £8.39, 2150 Splitcoin for £16.74, 3800 Splitcoin for £29.24, 5500 Splitcoin for £41.74, and 11500 Splitcoin for £83.49. All of these except the 500 claim to come with a bonus amount of Splitcoin. The 1000 comes with an additional 50, the 2000 comes with an additional 150, etc, etc. These really just feel like fake numbers. Coming with an additional 50 Splitcoin is pretty much pointless because that gets you absolutely nothing, and you would need to buy the 1000 Splitcoin quite a few times before you would get an extra bonus that could afford something in the shop. I hate when games do this. This isn't a Splitgate thing specifically, but throwing up that extra bonus thing to try and make the bundle look more enticing, when in reality the bonus thing, it's like when you buy a pack of batteries and it comes with an extra battery. That's useless. I need at least 2 for my Xbox controller. There's only any purpose in it if I'm buying it multiple times. Which, to be fair, is of course the intention. They want you to buy Splitcoin as much as possible. Yes, it's a free-to-play game. I'm not surprised that it does this. I just hate when games do this. Anyways, moving on from that, there is a couple of other things that you can purchase that do also grant you Splitcoin, with the first of these being the starter pack. This is arguably the best deal in the game right now. It costs £4.19, gives you 500 Splitcoin alongside 3 weapon skins and a skin for your portal. Unfortunately, these weapon skins are class specific since Splitgate is a class shooter, though these are all just different assault rifles. I'll talk about the class aspect in more detail later on too. But either way, I think the starter pack is a pretty solid deal. With that, you will be able to immediately buy one of the battle passes, and you do earn 500 Splitcoin back from each battle pass, so I do think they are also a really solid deal. So the fact that you can spend pretty much $5, immediately get a couple of weapon skins, and then be able to purchase one of the battle passes, all for a relatively low price, I think that's pretty solid, and I don't really have any complaints there. And since you do earn 500 Splitcoin back from the battle pass, it means you'll be able to buy the next one and the one after that. Now the Splitgate passes seem to work in a similar vein to Halo Infinite operations, where one season is broken up into 3 separate chapters. So essentially the update is broken up into 3 different parts. I don't really have any issue with this at all. I think that's a fine way to run the Battle Pass system, though I do wish, again, like Halo Infinite, I wish they were permanently available. So if I was to buy one, I didn't feel obligated to have to come onto the game multiple times within that select time frame. I've been relatively open about my thoughts on FOMO before, and I think it's extremely stupid, especially when it's linked to the game's primary form of progression. Moving back over to the store, there is a couple of other bundles that also give you Splitcoin, these being the Founders Packs. Now these are one of the first things where I do think they are pretty overpriced. There is 5 different Founders Packs available, 3 that are class specific, granting the player a recolor of the default skins for each class, while also granting you 3 colors of the weapons. Now these skins are animated, and in the bundles you also get 1,000 Splitcoin, a little weapon charm, a banner, and an emote. But the fact that these are just recolors, I think the price here is pretty high. These aren't necessarily super unique skins. You've taken the base character and just swapped the color. I know there would be a ridiculous amount of uproar if something like Halo Infinite did the same thing and sold armor coatings for the same price. Now you can get the Aces Founder Pack, which gives you the 3 class specific ones for a cheaper price, with this one costing $33.49 on its own. This gives you all the contents of those other passes, but it only gives you 2,000 Splitcoin, as opposed to of course the 1,000 you get individually. Though as I mentioned, this still works out cheaper than buying those 3 on their own, so this makes sense. And then you have the Ultimate Founders Pack. This gives you some additional weapon skins on top of the other stuff available, alongside 3,000 Splitcoin. This is $49.99, and I think for the contents here, that is pretty ridiculous. Again, most of these are just recolors, and if we are to compare it to a game like Fortnite, or even Halo Infinite in its current state, usually when you buy one of those weapon skins, they are applied to all of your weapons. And of course, the fact that you have to buy them all here individually or get a bundle, where these are all advertised as separate skins, feels just a little bit scummy, especially again when these are just animated recolors of the basic weapon model. Of course, the fact that you get Splitcoin with these I think makes them a little bit better. They're not the most egregious bundle I've ever seen in a video game. There is something in Splitgate itself that I think is significantly worse, and we'll touch upon that in a moment. But I do think the prices for these bundles is pretty crazy. Of course, they're the Founders Pack. They're supposed to just be more of like a support the devs, support the launch of the game kind of thing. I think if maybe the skins themselves were a little bit more unique, then I could justify this. But I just think for what's being offered here, it's not really that great. Now, of course, we've already spoken about the Battle Pass, which is one of the few things you can buy with Splitcoin, but there is other offerings. First of all, we'll talk about the featured offers. Now, these are bundles that will be present for everyone. Everyone will be able to see the items that are available here. As of the time of recording, the featured store includes the Nano Swarm bundle, the Overclock bundle, and the Javelin bundle. First of all, looking at Overclock, this is 900 Splitcoin and gives you 2 weapon skins for the Meridian class. This bundle costs 900 Splitcoin, and I think, again, for 2 reskins, that's pretty ridiculous. These are also locked to exclusively the Meridian class, so if that's the class you play, then that's pretty cool. Though again, what is almost $10 for just 2 weapon skins? Granted, yes, the Overclock Charger skin does come with 2 variants, which I don't think cost any additional price, but I think that's a bit too high for what it's offering. Next up, we have the Javelin bundle. This costs 1,200 Splitcoin, gives you a skin for the Arrows class, and also a skin for an Arrows pistol. Now, this bundle, in my opinion, is much better. It does cost more, but gives you a unique skin for the Arrows class and a unique skin for the Blink pistol, where the models look significantly different to the base variation. These aren't just recolors, these also have unique models, and I think for that, they are significantly better. This is similar to, of course, paying 1,500 V-Bucks in Fortnite for a character there, and these also come with variants, which once again, I don't think cost an additional price. Finally, we have the Nano Storm bundle. This is the final of the featured bundles available on the Splitgate shop right now. And you might have already heard quite a bit about this one. This was released at 8,000 Splitcoin, apparently on sale too. So it released at roughly $80, and that was considered its sale price. That has now been slashed in half, and it now costs 4,000 Splitcoin, which I still think $40 for what you're getting here is pretty ridiculous. But the bundle does include the Nano Nurse skin, which comes with its own variants, and then upgrades, which I believe you have to pay an additional price to unlock. This also applies to the weapons available. You get the Nano Swarm Helios, the Nano Swarm Hyperline, the Nano Swarm Synapse, and the Nano Swarm Quantum, alongside the Nano Swarm Portal. The craziest part about this is this grey portal is 1,200 Splitcoin on its own. When this was released, Splitgate did try to justify themselves by saying it's complex skins in a free-to-play game, so that makes it okay. Now, I think for $80, I'd expect the skin to reach out of the screen and physically kiss me on the forehead if that's how much I'm paying. $40 is much better. These weapon skins are much more unique and do have a cool animated effect around them, and of course, the Nano Nurse itself does come with quite a few variants. But the fact that there's those additional upgrades upgrades for each thing in the bundle, which I believe cost the Proelium currency, which again we'll come back round to, I think is relatively ridiculous, and I don't think I'd be alone in saying that. If we're looking at customizable skins, Fortnite not that long ago released their own Mandalorian skin as a part of the Star Wars crossover. This cost 1,800 V-Bucks, came with multiple different helmets, multiple shoulder pads, you could change the colour, it was relatively modular in its customization, and cost less than half of what this bundle does. Of course, the Nano Nurse on its own costs 1,600, which is cheaper than that mentioned Fortnite skin, but it isn't fully modularly customizable. And again, to be fair, the weapons do all come with unique variants. I think that's quite cool, but the biggest drawback here for me is the fact that these are class specific. The classes in Splitgate, in my opinion, feel relatively pointless. All of the weapons available in each class have similar functions. They all have their own assault rifle, carbine, shotgun, burst rifle, and SMG. And though they do have different stats and do affect the gameplay in different ways, they don't feel different enough to warrant these classes being separated. Yes, of course, the main thing is that each one has their own different passive and their own abilities. But I don't see any reason for these to not just be perks that you can select in the class menu. The classes themselves, if anything, just feel like another way to monetize the game, since if I buy a weapon skin for Eros, I can only use that in Eros. If I purchase the battle pass and I unlock a bunch of items, if I can't use those for the class that I play as, I have to play as a different character with different abilities in order to be able to use it. And I think that's just a little bit silly. Really, I don't think there's any reason I shouldn't be able to use the Trailblazer from Sabrask on the Meridian class. Especially as well because the different classes are supposed to be different factions. They're all supposed to have their unique style and appearance. But when you launch the game with recolors like that are available in the Founders Pack that make them all the exact same color, with how quick Splitgate's gameplay is, it immediately makes it relatively hard to be able to tell the classes apart anyways. Some of the skins that have been released for these individual classes, you can kind of tell what faction they're supposed to fit into. Like the Javelin bundle mentioned earlier on, I think that skin is very clearly an Aero skin. And the Nano Nurse does look much more Meridian-esque. But then if we look at some of the skins in one of the upcoming battle passes, the Rico skin available for the Sabrask class, I don't really think anything about that screams that it belongs to that faction. And therefore I don't think there's a reason that these should be split up into a class system in the way that they are. I shouldn't have to play as Meridian and use the Meridian abilities to be able to use the Nano Nurse skin. I just don't really think there's any reason for it. I think the way that the loadouts have been handled is pretty damn poor, and really does just feel like an additional way to monetize the game. Once again, comparing it to a game like Halo Infinite, I thought it was stupid when the customization was restricted to cores. That has loosened up a lot since launch, so hopefully Splitgate does the same thing. But of course, I suppose the difference with Infinite is that isn't restricted to loadouts. I don't have different abilities if I'm playing as the Yoroi core. That is strictly limited to customization. So I do think it's a little bit less offensive than it is in Splitgate. Quickly rotating back around, there is another thing that you can buy with Splitcoin, this being Proelium, the currency we mentioned earlier. This currency is used to upgrade weapon skins and characters. You have to buy Splitcoin in order to buy Proelium, which you then use to upgrade skins that you've already spent your money on, and I think that is pretty damn ridiculous. This is apparently similar to a system in Valorant, but I wouldn't know. I don't play that game because I actually enjoy fresh air, and do in fact have a job. Valorant shade aside, I think this is an unbelievably stupid system. I think if I've purchased a skin, I should own that skin and the contents within it. There shouldn't be an additional fee just so that I can unlock additional effects. And of course this is optional, but it feels like I'm only paying for half of the cosmetic here, and I think that's a little bit silly. Now if this was handled more like similar bundles we've seen in Fortnite, for example, if you buy the Tomato Head skin, you are then granted some challenges to unlock an additional variant for that character. I think purchasing the skin and then unlocking those additional features isn't that bad, but I think purchasing the skin and then needing to buy more of the skin is stupid, and there's no other way around that. The final tab that's available on the Splitgate shop is your personal weekly rotation. This is very similar to the weekly rotation present in Overwatch 2. It's supposed to cater more so to your playstyle and the characters that you play as, offering different weapon skins or character skins that the player is more inclined to buy. Now on Overwatch 2, I think this works a lot better since there is a ton of more stuff available in that game that are present all the time. In Splitgate, however, with it being a relatively new game, I think this is a really bizarre choice. There is a ton of skins that are in the game that people cannot purchase because you have to wait for it to show up in your weekly rotation. I just think Splitgate really would be better off if it offered a catalog system that constantly expanded, where maybe it does feature some specific things that's more akin to sort of a, hey, you play this character, we think you might like this, while also making all of the other cosmetics visible to the player so that they may purchase them if they desire. This might seem a bit more nitpicky, but I do think that's just a strange way to operate the store in a new game. I would want players to be able to see all of the stuff that's available, as it makes the game seem like it has a ton more content, even if it's just specifically in the cosmetic department that we're talking about. Right now, my weekly rotation offers me 4 different assault rifle skins, 2 of which are for the Trailblazer, and these cost 500 Splitcoin each. As I've already mentioned, I think 500 for just one recolor that can only be used for one class is just dumb. It's dumb. I can buy Canopy Tempo, but I can only use that for arrows. If I wanted Canopy Tempo on other weapons, I'd have to pay even more money. Or if I wanted a skin for my assault rifle for a different class, again, gotta spend more money, and I think that's dumb. Overall, I think Splitgate has some of the worst monetization I have seen in a free-to-play live service game. If we were to compare the prices of Splitcoin to some other titles, like the 2 that I mentioned earlier being Fortnite and Halo, both Splitgate and Halo Infinite offer 500 of its respective currency. Infinite costs $3.99, and that is not factoring in the discount you get with Game Pass, whereas Splitgate's cheapest is of course 500 Splitcoin for £4.19. Moving over to 1,000, we can now factor in Fortnite, as Fortnite offers 1,000 V-Bucks for $6.99, Halo Infinite offers 1,000 credits for $7.99, and Splitgate offers 1,000 Splitcoin for $8.39. Splitgate does give you 50 extra compared to those other 2 games, but that does come at the cost of it being the most expensive out of the 3. Moving on to the 2,000 offering, Fortnite gives you 2,800 V-Bucks for $17.49, Halo Infinite gives you 2,200 credits for $15.99, and Splitgate gives you 2,150 for $16.74. So this means Splitgate is cheaper than Fortnite in this regard, but gives you significantly less, while more expensive than Halo Infinite, but giving you less. Splitgate does have the offering of 3,800 Splitcoin for £29 and 24 pence. Neither of the other games do give you an offering of a similar caliber, so we'll just move over to the 5,000. Fortnite gives you 5,000 V-Bucks for $27.99, Halo Infinite gives you 5,600 credits for $39.99, and Splitgate gives you 5,500 credits for $41.74. Fortnite is significantly cheaper than the other 2 in this regard, even if it does give you the least out of the 3. Splitgate still works out more expensive than Halo Infinite, while also giving you less. And then the highest tier you can get on all 3 is 13,500 V-Bucks on Fortnite for $69.99, 11,500 credits on Infinite for $79.99, and 11,500 Splitcoin for $83.49. Again, making Splitgate the most expensive out of the 3. I think as a whole, Fortnite just has the better offerings. I think Fortnite prices a little bit better than most other live service games. Of course, all 3 of these titles offer completely different cosmetics. In Fortnite specifically, everything is just cosmetic. It's not limited to any specific abilities or classes. Everything is purely visual. In Halo Infinite, again, it's all cosmetic, but the cosmetics are more modular in the way that they can be customized. If I buy an armor set in Halo, I can apply those armor pieces in any configuration that I want, especially now with cross-core helmets, cross-core coatings, and cross-core shoulder pads. Whereas Splitgate is released in a state where the customization feels a little bit limited, and the monetization feels kind of foul. Again, these are not the most egregious prices that have ever been present in a video game. Splitgate definitely doesn't take that title. But at the same time, Splitgate is one of the only games that I've seen where it's advertising itself as making FPS games great again, and then copying a bunch of features from other titles while also making its store prices more expensive than most of the competition, while simultaneously claiming that they're doing it for the players and they're putting the fans first. I do just want to quickly comment on the fact that the Splitgate CEO was saying he wasn't aware that they charged $80 for a bundle and that it was a Call of Duty developer's fault. And I'll just throw that clip in here.
And I said, Derek, like, did you know we had an $80 bundle? Like, this is news to me. Like, what the heck? Like, that makes no sense. And he didn't. And essentially what happened is our former head of monetization, who happened to come from Call of Duty, was with us for less than a year and was very aggressive on the pricing. And so actually prior to his departure, We actually originally had founders packs at $100.
I do find it incredibly strange that they would try and blame the pricing on someone who apparently doesn't even work there anymore. And given the 1047 CEO seems to have a real hatred towards Call of Duty, I feel like it'd be weird to hire an ex-Call of Duty monetization person to begin with. Of course, it's entirely possible that this is intended as a joke, but I find it really weird the constant need to try and bring down other games, rather than just focusing on making your game the best game it can be. I'm not going to really delve into talking about the gameplay at all. I might talk about Splitgate's Battle Royale at some point because I have some strong thoughts on that too, but specifically looking at the monetary standpoint, I think Splitgate is monetized in a relatively scummy way. I think some of the prices are extremely unjust in comparison to the competition on the live service game front, and the constant pettiness towards other titles. I say this as someone who really does not like Call of Duty. I cannot stand their usage of AI art for designing some of their cosmetics, but I think Splitgate isn't helping itself by feeling that they constantly need to try and prove that they're better. Tangent aside, I think for the most part we have gone over all of the monetization aspects in Splitgate 2. I think there is definitely things available in this game that are worth it, and again I do just want to point out these are cosmetic items. Nothing about this changes the gameplay, it's purely the way that you look, and it is a free-to-play game, so I'm not saying I don't expect it to have any monetization at all, but I think some serious changes need to be made. Maybe not necessarily specifically just reducing prices, but rather making these bundles really feel like they're worth the money. Making weapon skins available to multiple classes would be a start, but Splitgate 2 is still relatively new, so it's got plenty of time to improve. I just wish it had maybe looked at some of the improvements that some of the games that it's competing with had already made, and maybe took a bit of inspiration from there too. But anyways, with that being said, I think that wraps up everything I need to talk about today. If you would like to see me cover some more elements of Splitgate in the future, please do let me know. And of course, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Splitgate store down below. And of course, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Splitgate store down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.